First, let's start with gratitude. First, I would like to do a land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I'd also like to acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And also, I would like to thank the Ontario College of Traditional Chinese Medicine for co-organizing these webinars, as well as the Toronto Integrative Medicine Center, which is the professional clinic of the Ontario College of Traditional Chinese Medicine in Toronto. And last but not least, I would like to thank you for taking the time tonight, despite the very nice weather, for being here for learning more about how to take care of yourself and your health. Disclaimer, this webinar is for educational purposes only. It's not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please always seek for advice of your healthcare provider if you have any questions regarding a medical condition. So your health provider could be me or any of your doctors, acupuncturists, or whoever is taking care of your health. Please never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have learned on this webinar. First, let's introduce each other. Who am I? My name is Aline Yon. Was born and I grew up in France. I'm of Chinese and Cambodian descent, and then I immigrated to Canada 5 years ago. I hold a bachelor's degree in life science from the University of Paris in France. And then afterwards, I went to earn a master's degree in biotechnology management. After graduation from my master's degree, I worked for 10 years in the pharmaceutical industry at a global level, at senior manager level. And then after 10 years, I decided to change careers. And after immigrating to Canada, I went back to school, went back to the Ontario College of Traditional Chinese Medicine, where I earned my acupuncture diploma. I'm now a registered acupuncturist, registered with the College of Traditional Chinese Medicine Practitioners and Acupuncturists of Ontario, and I practice traditional Chinese medicine. What is traditional Chinese medicine? Sorry, for those of you who have attended lots of my previous webinars, this will be a revision, and for the others, welcome to my world. So when you look at those two pictures, what do you see? First, on the left-hand side, some of you might see a duck. Here you have the head of the duck, you have the eye of the duck, and here you have the beak of the duck. And then other people, some of you, they don't see a duck, but they see a rabbit. Here you still have a rabbit with the head of the rabbit here, the eye of the rabbit, and here you have the ears of the rabbit. Does that mean that those of you who saw the duck are wrong? No. Does that mean that those of you who saw the rabbit are wrong? No. It just means that depending on the perspective at which we look at that drawing, we can see either a rabbit or either a duck. It's the same regarding human health. If you look at it from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, you would look at it from a different angle than biomedicine. And same for the picture on the right-hand side. Some of you see a half full glass of water and others would see a half empty glass of water. Again, both of you are right. It just depends on which perspective you look at the glass of water and what you want to focus on. So when we look at the human body, here we have two different drawing and representation of the human body. Here on the left-hand side, we have this famous drawing from Leonardo da Vinci. So we can see here that he drew a human body very precisely and clearly, with the head in right proportions, with the arms and the hands, the torso and the legs. So biomedicine is very descriptive. They really want to look at the body the way they see it. On the contrary, traditional Chinese medicine, they know how a human body is, but they want to look at it from a conceptual way, For instance, here, believe it or not, it's actually a drawing of a human body, how it is on the conceptual way. So here at the bottom, they would represent the kidney meridian as the sea, and then the kidney meridian is the water, so it would run up to the spine, so that's why you see this big river. The digestive system, they would see it at Earth. It's like a man cultivating his land, and then digestive system afterwards, with the fruit of his labor, he would cook, and that's what the digestive system, how the digestive system is seen according to traditional Chinese medicine. And then here, instead of the liver meridian, for instance, they would see the wood, and etc., etc. How would biomedicine and traditional Chinese medicine would look at those symptoms? For instance, if you have anxiety, insomnia, palpitations, poor memory, you're always tired. And if you have menses, your menses are either scanty, which means not a lot of bleeding, or if they're delayed. What does that mean? In biomedicine, so biomedicine would cut the different symptoms, they would cut the different levels of behind where they would look at the symptoms one by one. For instance, anatomy is really used in biomedicine, the way they see it, like Leonardo da Vinci. Anatomy means cut, and microscope, you cut under different levels. So for instance, if you have anxiety, biomedicine would say, oh, it's anxiety, maybe you should see either a psychiatrist or either a psychologist. If you have insomnia, they would say, oh, might be the nervous system. So they might send you to the neurologist. If you have palpitations, they would say, oh, it's a heart thing. So they would send you to the cardiologist. If you have poor memory, they might look at different things. Maybe a neurologist. If you're tired all the time, they say, oh, maybe it could be an hormones, it could be the endocrine system. So they would send you to the endocrinologist. And if you have menses and your menses are delayed or scanty, they would say, oh, it's a reproductive system issue. So they would send you to the gynecologist. How would traditional Chinese medicine would look at it? So traditional Chinese medicine, they won't look at one symptoms one by one separately. They would integrate, and they would look at all the symptoms at once. They would look at, oh, wow, you have anxiety plus insomnia plus palpitation plus poor memory plus tiredness plus scanty and delayed menses. Oh, for us, we know the pattern. We would call it hard blood deficiency. So that's really the main difference, like one of the difference between traditional Chinese medicine and biomedicine. Traditional Chinese medicine integrate everything that's happening in your body and in your life into your diagnostics and treatment. Some of you might think that traditional Chinese medicine is just an old folks medicine and it has no scientific data, but believe it or not, if it's there for more than 3,000 years, it means that somehow it works. And in China and also East Asia, they've been doing a lot of research on it. And even in the more Western world, they've done a lot of research on traditional Chinese medicine and how acupuncture works, for instance. And you have numerous studies, and they found that it's working for reproductive medicine, chronic pain, pregnancy, cancer, constipation, depression, insomnia, and so on. So usually if you're asking yourself, does traditional Chinese medicine or acupuncture works in this and that and this and that? The answer is usually yes, because it's an own traditional Chinese medicine is their own medicine system. So they will treat whatever you have. Traditional Chinese medicine is more than 2,200 years old. Why do I say that? Because you have this very important book, The Huangdi Neijing. Apologies for native Chinese speakers for my bad accent. It's translated by the Yellow Empress Classic of Medicine. It's one of the canons or one of the major texts in traditional Chinese medicine. And that book summarizes theory and techniques. And that book is 2,200 years old. So for a book, that is 2,200 years old, if that book summarizes techniques that were hundreds of years in practice, it means that the medicine has been older than that. On the contrary, when was the modern biomedicine, Western medicine that we know was born? It was born in the 19th century with Claude Bernard and Pasteur, when Louis Pasteur, for instance, when they made the research on microbiology and so on. Now we had, sorry. So now we had a brief explanation on traditional Chinese medicine. So now we will look at how traditional Chinese medicine look at the summer. First, before we start, I would like to do a bit of theory. And one theory that is very important in traditional Chinese medicine is the 5 elements. Some of you know the yin and yang, that you don't have day without night and so on. But another theory that is really, really important is the 5 elements. What are the 5 elements? The 5 elements are wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. How does it work? So we have a generating interaction. So you look at those gray arrows here. So for instance, would say that water would generate wood. Why we say that? Because if you don't have water, wood cannot grow. And then they say that wood would generate fire. Why? Because you need wood to create fire. And then they would say fire would generate earth. Why? Because when you burn a lot of wood, at the end, you would have a lot of ashes. Then ashes is dirt, and dirt is technically earth. And then in the earth, you would find ores of metal. That's why they say that earth generates metal. And metal, if you look at a very microscopic level, metal can be divided into ions, and if you have several ions together, they would give water. That's why we say that metal would generate water. I hope this relationship between the 5 elements is clear for you. And if not, please feel free to type away your questions. I will answer them at the end of the presentation. So now that you know the theory of the 5 elements, I would like to talk about the 5 elements, the seasons, and the COVID pandemic. So in traditional Chinese medicine, we don't have 4, but actually 5 seasons. So the season of the wood is spring. The season that would represent fire would be the summer. The season that would represent earth would be late summer. The season of the metal would be autumn, fall, and the season of the winter would be the season of the water would be winter. Now let's talk about how COVID pandemic shaped our past year. So if you remember last year, COVID, as how it was known into the world, started around Chinese New Year. And Chinese New Year, technically, it's the start of spring. So COVID started during the wood season. And when COVID started and then we were in lockdown, we were stressed out because we didn't know what was happening, how dangerous it was. We were stressed out because we were stressed out for our life. Some of us, unfortunately, lost their jobs because of the pandemic or lost the revenue of the pandemic. So that's a lot of stress. And then we had lockdown. So the lockdown generated a lot of frustration and irritability because we couldn't go out anymore. Some of us had children and we had to homeschool them. So those generated a lot of stress and frustration. And that was during the spring. And for some of you who attended my webinar on stress, you know that because wood was too dry, because wood wasn't in good quality during the spring, then we didn't have enough wood, or if we had wood, the wood would be very, very dry. And therefore, in the summer, which is the season of the fire, we didn't have a lot of wood to burn. And when you don't have a lot of wood to burn, you don't have a lot of fire. And in traditional Chinese medicine, in the 5 elements, a lack of fire means also a lack of joy. So when came the summer last year, we had a lack of joy. And then we didn't have a lot of fire. And therefore, when came the late summer, which is August, September, some people, even if the first lockdown was over, they were craving for touch, or they were eating a lot because they didn't have a lot of earth, because they didn't have enough fire to generate ashes and generate earth. That's why some of you last August, September, some of you rushed to the massage therapist because they were craving for touch. Some of you rushed into food because food belongs to the earth element, and some of you were very, very, very worried about what's going on. So earth wasn't very nourished. And then when earth is not very nourished, earth cannot generate metal. So when came the fall season, which is more October, some of you were really, really sad. And unfortunately, for some of you who lost loved ones during the pandemic, then the grief was really, really intense. And why? Because metal helps you grieving. And if metal is not strong enough, it's very, very difficult to grieve, and then you're really, really sad. And then because metal wasn't nourished, because earth wasn't nourished, because fire wasn't nourished, because wood was too stressed out, then when came the winter, which starts in November, then we don't have a lot of water because metal is not nourished and metal cannot generate water, which means for the last winter, a lot of us were really, really afraid of what was happening and how the future would be, because we couldn't see the end of it. And then came spring again, Chinese New Year, February of 21. And because there was there was not enough water to nourish wood, wood was very dry, and we had even more stress and frustration and irritability because we're fed up with this third lockdown. And now we are in summer. So for some of us, it's great. It's summer, lockdown is over, it's sunny, we can finally go out, we can finally go out on patios and restaurants and meet friends. But for some of us, because there was a lack of nourishment for a full year, then we have a lack of joy during this summer. So not to worry. I would say I can't say there's nothing wrong with you, but it's just you don't have to worry too much, because that was expected. Anyway, I expect that for my patients. So my role is making sure that this wheel of life, the 5 elements, that wood would generate fire, that fire would generate earth and metal, and water would generate wood, and so on, that keeps going. And that's how I treat my patients. So if you have a lack of joy in this summer, despite the end of the lockdown, despite the summer coming back again in Canada, which is very important, know that there are ways to take care of yourself and make you feel better. And one of the ways is getting acupuncture and being treated in traditional Chinese medicine. So why am I talking about that? For those of you who attended my stress webinar on the fire element, they know that because of the dry wood, we had fire blazing, and because the fire meridian, which are the heart and the small intestine meridians, and 2 others, which are pericardium and the triple burner, they're a bit weak, or they're just blazing, then we would have insomnia, anxiety, palpitation, we could have poor memory, and for some of us, we would have irritable bowel syndrome. And more important than that, some of us would have a lack of joy, depression due to a lack of joy, not depression due to sadness, but depression due to a lack of joy. And here you have the link for my last webinar. We can talk about that later. So what does Chinese medicine say? What do they say about health and how to stay healthy and keep good health? So according to the Huangdi Neijing, the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Medicine, they said that in the 3 months of summer, one may retire somewhat later and at this time of the year while still arising early. One should refrain from anger and stay physically active. One should not overindulge in sex, although one can indulge a bit more than in other seasons. Emotionally, it is important to be happy and easygoing and not hold grudges. In this way, illness may be averted in full. So in traditional Chinese medicine, whatever you do, whatever happens in your life will have consequences in the future. So for them, it's really important to sleep enough in the summer while getting up early, to do exercise, to not have too much sex, and to stay happy in the summer to make sure you'll be in good health in the fall, in the autumn. Otherwise, you might expect some discomfort in the autumn. So we will look one by one at all those recommendations from the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Medicine, and I will give you some explanation to it. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them away in the chat. First, season in the Chinese solar calendar. So some of you might have noticed that since early May, some of you are more chatty, want to go out more, have this urge to express joy. Why? It's because the summer, according to the traditional Chinese calendar, started on the 5th of May. So we've been in our summer technically for more than a month now. And the autumn would start in August. So what do we do? How is summer in traditional Chinese medicine? So first, summer in traditional Chinese medicine, it's a very, very young season. Young, and the great young in traditional Chinese medicine is the sun. So it's the season where you have the most sun. And the sun encourages expansion and growth. And you can tell if you have a garden at home, all your plants are growing because there's so much water, and more than that, there's so much sun, so they can grow. And the sun and the fire go from an outward activity. For those of you who've attended my spring webinar, I was saying that for spring, the energy go up and out, whereas in the summer, it goes out, just like the sun is radiating outwards. And the emotion associated with the summer is joy. And some of you might even notice it, usually in the summer we're happier. Why? Because it's the summer, you have more sun. And also the sound of the summer is laughter. So some of you might have noticed that in the summer we laugh much more than during the other seasons. And also the summer in traditional Chinese medicine is associated with the tongue. And by the tongue, we also mean the speech, how we talk. For traditional Chinese medicine, the summer is also associated with heat. You have more sun, so you have more heat. It's associated with the fire and the red color. The meridian associated with the summer would be heart, small intestine, pericardium, and triple burner. The summer is also associated with blood vessels. So for those who have issues, cardiovascular issues, be mindful during the summer. And also the bitter flavor is associated with the summer. Why? Because they said that in the summer you have a lot of fire, and then the fire can burn. And when it's burnt, it's bitter. So what should we do to stay healthy and happy in the summer with traditional Chinese medicine? So 8 principles. First, get up early and go to sleep with the sun. The most important thing, according to traditional Chinese medicine and Taoism, is we should get up and go to sleep with the sun. And in the summer, the sun gets up earlier, so we should get up earlier. And the sun goes to sleep later, the sun sets later, so we should go to sleep later. We can go to sleep later because the sun sets later. We should also exercise more. I will talk about it later. We should also eat the appropriate summer food. I'll talk about that later. We should refrain from anger and be more easygoing and more forgiving. We can enjoy sex at least more than during the winter, but not too much sex because that would be detrimental to our health. In our modern world, where we have the air conditioning, it would also important to wear scarves and cover your neck, at least when you're indoors. And summer, it's the season of expansion of communication. So feel free to let your creativity flow and do whatever creative activities you'd like. It's the time to do it. It's when you would have the most creativity. And last but not least, joy is the emotion of the summer. So by all means, put as much joy as you can in your life, especially after this big pandemic where for 1 year we had less joy. Okay, first, get up and go to sleep with the sun. So what does that mean? Rise early, retire later with the sun. So I just explained earlier, we need to get up and go to sleep with the sun. So in the summer, the sun gets up earlier, so we have to get up earlier, and we can go to bed later. And by later, it means when the sun sets, when the suns go to bed. So I did check the calendar. So usually the sun sets around 9:30 or something like that. But it's important to go to sleep by 11 p.m. And why 11 p.m.? Because at that time, it's the time of the gallbladder and the liver meridian. And those are very important in regulating our hormones, which is also our moods, and also would help us making the right decision. So why do I say that? According to the traditional Chinese medicine, we have a circadian clock, a body clock, and every 2 hours, that clock is divided according to the 12 meridian. For instance, the heart meridian and the small intestine meridian, which are the fire meridian associated with the summer, are between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. So a way to take care of your heart meridian, for instance, is when you have lunch, have lunch in the nice setting that will bring you joy. Have lunch with people that will bring you joy. In other words, well, it doesn't matter now anymore, but it was like, I know at the time when I was working in my corporate job, I just avoided to have lunch, even if it was work lunch with colleagues I didn't know because I couldn't eat and it didn't nourish my heart. And same, pericardium and triple burner meridians are between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. So at those time, again, it's usually dinner time, at least it's the case in France. So have food in a nice setting that bring you joy, and have food with people you like, and have like food that you enjoy and brings you joy. So why did I say going to bed by 11 p.m.? So I say 11 p.m. because I usually mixed up with the summertime and the winter time. So I never know what is 11 p.m. 11 p.m. is given in terms of solar time. So I'm not sure how it goes with Canadian time. However that may be, between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., it's the time where you should really, really be asleep and not digesting. That's why it's important that you don't eat too late. So when you go to sleep, your body is not busy digesting. It's because during that time is the time of the liver and the gallbladder meridians. And in traditional Chinese medicine, each element have what they say the spiritual entity, and the spiritual entity soul of the liver and the gallbladder meridian is the Hun. It's your ethereal soul. It's the Hun that while you're asleep between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. that would travel between your past and your future and maybe your other lives, and would gather a lot of information. So when you're awake, you can take good decision based on what that spirit has been on what information that Hun spirit has been gathering while you were asleep. That's why it's important to go to be asleep at that time. And even in biomedicine, they said that when you sleep by 11 or midnight, it's when the body regenerates the more. It's when the body would detoxify. So that's why it's important to be asleep by 11 p.m., even in the summer. Exercise. Why is it important to exercise even more in the summer? Because in the summer, there is an abundance of energy. And when you have a lot of energy, you need to move it, because if you don't move the energy gets stuck. And that's why you feel stuck. And that's why you would have a lot of irritability and anger and frustration. And I know that during the summer, in some places, it's very, very hot. So it's difficult to exercise. So the best time to exercise would be in the morning. And it's also when before 11 a.m., before the sun is too high. And a Taoist monk told me that the yang energy is actually the most beneficial. The sun is the most beneficial to us in the morning. And when it's the worst, it's around lunchtime. And in the afternoon, he said that the yang energy, it could be beneficial or not. So just in case, it's best just to exercise in the morning and to get that beneficial yang energy. And if we look at it from a biomedicine point of view, the morning sun is fine. It's rare to get sunburnt if you have the morning sun, because the sun is not as hot. Whereas if you have the midday sun, then that's when you would have sunburned. Now, what do we eat in the summer according to traditional Chinese medicine? So first, eating the appropriate food. When you're not sure what to eat, the best bet is eat what is in season. And first is eat whole grains. Anything that is whole food, it's better for you. Too much processed food is actually bad for your health. First, eat whole grains, whole foods, and also eat seasonal produce, what you get during the season, because the fruits and vegetables that grow during the seasons are the fruits and vegetables that would help you attune to the season and be in better health. And in the summer, because there's so much young energy, there's so much growth, there's plenty of fruits and vegetables of different colors. So it's really important to eat as many different food as you can, fruits and vegetables as you can, from many different colors during the summer. And some of you have already noticed it. In the summer, we are less hungry, at least less hungry than during the winter. It's normal. In the summer, we should eat less and lightly. And because it's so hot outside, we would need to eat fresh and cooling food. And those fresh and cooling foods would be in the form of salad or sprouts, especially mung bean, soy, and alfalfa. Mung bean, for instance, is very good at detoxifying. In traditional Chinese medicine, they say detoxify excess heat. So when it's really hot and humid outside, a way to cool you down is to take the mung beans and to boil them, and either you boil them and make a mung bean soup, or either you boil them and you put a lot of water and you drink the boiling water. That would help you cool down and stay cool during the summer. Other fresh cooling food that you could eat is cucumber, for instance, and tofu, because those are really cooling food, just like this salad here. And this is typically a summer salad, cooling food with cucumber, tofu. You have different colors like the carrots and the cabbage that would nourish you, and coriander, because you add warming quality into your food. And you also have herbal teas that would cool you down and help cool you down during the summer, would be chrysanthemum tea, mint tea, or chamomile. What are the fruits that would help you cool down during the summer? No surprise, watermelon. And you can tell watermelon is red in color, and red is the color of summer. So in the summer, anything red would be beneficial to you. For instance, cherries are found in the summer, so it's a great summer food. And apples, red apples would be good too. They would help you cool you down, and lemon and lime would also help you to cool you down during the summer. I have to tell you a warning. Yes, in the summer it's very hot, so we need cooling foods. But cooling foods means food that have cooling properties in traditional Chinese medicine, like apples, watermelon, lemon, lime, sprouts, cucumber, tofu, and not necessarily cold in temperature. Why? Because when you eat too much cold food and drinks during the summer, it actually weakens your digestive system. And how does it weaken your digestive system? It's because your body is at 37 degrees Celsius in temperature, and your body should stay at this temperature to be fully functioning. And whatever you eat and whatever you drink, the body would bring all those food and drinks at 37 degrees before the body starts digesting it and absorbing it. So if the body is using a lot of energy to heat up the food, it's not good for you because your idea is actually cooling you down. And if you had too much cold drinks and cold food, it weakens your digestive system. That's why in the summer, yes, we want to have cold beers and cold drinks and ice cream, but please have them in moderations. Same for salad, for raw food. It's nice to have them during the summer because it's so hot outside. But if your digestion is a bit weak, if you have food sensitivities, don't eat too much of those cold and raw food. So what should you do instead? You could add hot spices to warm up the food. And also the other properties of hot spices, such as red, green, hot pepper, cayenne red pepper, fresh ginger, horseradish, and also black pepper, they bring yang, they bring the heat to the surface of the body. And because your body is being heat up, the body starts to sweat. Like some of you, when you, after eating a chili pepper, you would start sweating. And that sweat would help cool down your body, and also it would help you attune to the warmth of the atmosphere of the summer. And earlier I said not too much cold food and ice drinks. And why? Because it weakens your digestive system. So what should we do? Drink warm and eat warm. For instance, in Morocco, for instance, they would serve you mint tea, and mint, peppermint is actually cooling for your body, but you drink it warm so it wouldn't weaken your digestive system. So that's a way of taking care of your health during the summer. And how do we cook in the summer? Yes, it's the summer, it's warm outside, there's more yang energy, so now you can eat raw food and eat salad too, but you could also cook lightly with little salt and more water. And for instance, where you saute foods, you stir fry, like saute them at high heat and you saute them for a short time. So it's not fully cooked, but it's still warm, so it's easier on your digestion. And same for when you steam your food, you steam them for a short period of time, so it would still be light on your digestion. And please avoid heavy food because they would cause sluggishness. The food like here, for instance, in this picture, you have a lot of grain, a lot of rice, meats, and eggs, and that's typically the type of food you would avoid during the summer because they would make you tired and feel very, very sluggish. That's the food for the winter, not for the summer. And I said earlier that in summer, the flavor is bitter. And why bitter flavor? Because in traditional Chinese medicine, they say the bitter flavor would help with heart qi, because heart meridian is one of the meridians of the summer. But you have to be careful. And what is bitter? Coffee, chocolate, celery, arugula, parsley, corn, kale, collard greens. And you can notice that apart from coffee and chocolate, the rest are actually food that we would naturally eat during the summer. But be careful not too much bitter flavor in your diet, because too much bitterness would cause depletion of your heart qi. Like your emotions will be scattered and you won't feel well. And if you have too much bitter flavor in your diet, it would be a good idea to balance it with a salty flavor, for instance. And as with all recommendations, the recommendation I just gave you regarding your diet, you have to take those recommendations with a grain of salt because you have to eat according to the season, but also according to your constitution, according to your health conditions, and also your life circumstances. For instance, a new mom who just gave birth in the summer, I wouldn't tell her to eat a lot of raw food and salad and cooling foods, even if it's the summer, because after giving birth, a woman should eat warm food. If you have any doubt on what to eat during the summer and so on, know that you can book an appointment with me because I offer a 15 minutes free complimentary phone consultation, and you would tell me briefly what's going on in your health, and I could advise briefly what food you should eat or not. And of course, you can make a full appointment with me so I can treat you and give you advice. What should we do during the summer? We should refrain from anger and be easygoing. Why? Because you saw earlier that anger is the emotion of spring of the wood. And if you have a lot of anger, then your wood would be very, very dry. And what happens when you have a dry wood? The fire blazes and burns very quickly for a very short period of time. Except that in your life, we need a continuous fire, your fire of life, the joy of living. So you need wood that would be able to burn a sustainable fire. And if you have too much anger, then you wouldn't have sustainable fire, you wouldn't have sustainable joy. That's why they say that during the summer months, we should refrain from having too much anger and be more easygoing. And anyway, what's the point of getting angry over what's having for lunch, for instance? It's the summer after all. We can eat so many types of food, so it should be okay. And if you still have a bad temper and you're still very susceptible to stress, which could very, very well happen, especially after this 1 year plus of pandemic, please practice patience and contentment and do spirit focusing practice because the spirit of the summer, they say it's the soul, is the Shen. So how to calm our mind and our soul. Do spirit focusing practices such as prayer, meditation, devotional singing, repeat mantras, do affirmations, or even be silent, but be silent in your heart. And we could also heal the heart spirit with speech, because in traditional Chinese medicine, they say the heart opens to the tongue, and by tongue, they also say speech. So be very mindful of what you say, because whatever you say can hurt, but can also heal. So be mindful of whatever you say will heal you, but also heal the other people. And during the summer, it's time to enjoy sex, but please don't overindulge. For some of you who attended my winter webinar, I said in the winter, please refrain from having sex. Wait for the summer where you can have more sex. But still, don't overindulge. Why? Because especially for a man, when a man has a lot of sex, and by sex I mean ejaculate, each time a man ejaculates, he loses a bit of his life essence, his jing, and normally he would make up for his life essence with rest and with food. And usually sex drive in traditional Chinese medicine is linked with yang energy. And in the summer, there's a lot of yang energy. So naturally, people in the summer will have more sex drive. But even if you have more sex drive in the summer, yes, enjoy sex, but not too much, because otherwise you would lose too much jing, you would lose too much life essence. And what does the life essence do? They keep you alive and in good health. And the life essence is also used for making babies. For instance, I know like some young men, they have a lot of sex drive because they're young and full of energy, and they have a lot, maybe too much sex during the summer or at any time. And then when comes the time when they're not they're not in their 20s anymore, and they want to have babies in their 30s, for instance, they have issues with fertility because they use too much of the life essence by having too much sex. That's why in the summer we said, yes, enjoy sex, but not too much because you would deplete your own life energy. And another very important thing during the summer, yes, have sex, yes, enjoy sex, but there's a warning again. Sorry for um, for spoiling the atmosphere. Please do not have sex when you are drunk. It's not as serious in the summer as in the winter, but it still applies in the summer. Why? Because when you drink alcohol, you have lots of young energy. Alcohol is pure young energy, and so the energy goes up to the head. And if when you're drunk, when all the energy goes to your head, and then you have sex, which means you are using the energy of your lower abdomen, then you're using even more life essence. So that's why they said don't have sex when you're drunk, because it's really depletive for your life energy, especially if you want healthy children later. Why would I advise you to cover your neck? Such as me, for instance, now I have a scarf because I'm indoors and there's air conditioning. It's because when you're indoor, you have air conditioning, which is technically wind blowing at you. It's cold wind blowing at you. And for those of you who have who are sitting just under the air conditioning or near them, sometimes you have the wind blowing right into your neck. And when the wind is blowing at you, that's how you can catch disease. Like some of you, they get sick because of the air conditioning in the summer. So how do you prevent that? Wear a scarf. Why? Because you have very vulnerable points in your body that would be very vulnerable from wind invasion. And those points are on your shoulders here, and on the back of your neck here, at the base of your neck, and in the middle of the neck. So if you are indoors with air conditioning, please, by all means, wear a scarf to protect you from wind invasion and to protect you from being sick. Summer, be creative and communicate. As I said earlier, summer is, in traditional Chinese medicine, the fire is the fire of creativity. Some of you are artists, and when you have the fire and then you have the inspiration. So when you have the inspiration, by all means, it's time to draw, to do a creative projects. It's the time to do it because it's the time when your creativity would be at their peak. It's also the time where your creativity would also bring a lot of joy to other people, lots of laughter to other people. So by all means, in the summer, be creative. And you don't have to do, a big art pieces. Just do something for you, be creative. And being creative could be creative in your kitchen, when you cook, or creative in the way you dress, and so on and so on. And last but not least, let joy be in your life. As I said earlier, summer is the emotion of summer is joy. So by all means, if there is something that would bring you joy in your life, go out, meet your friends, sing, make anything that makes you happy. It's especially important in the summer because you need that joy to keep nourishing you. You need that fire of life that would keep nourishing you in the following seasons. Summer disease and when to consult. When should you consult for traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture? When you have too much fire or not enough. For instance, if you're too hot, if your mind is scattered, you're talking about one thing and then 3 seconds later you're talking about others and we can't make up what you're saying and so on. If you have insomnia, if you are restless, if you have palpitations, or if you are depressed because you have not enough joy, it's time to come for acupuncture. And at the same time, if you have an ongoing disease, I know it's the summer, you want to go out and enjoy the nice weather. Also, be mindful of your health, because in the summer, it's also the season to take care of a cold disease. For instance, for people who are always cold in the winter, who are cold in their bones in the winter, summer is actually the best time to take care of that and to add more yang and more warmth in your body, so your winter wouldn't be as terrible. And of course, if you have any ongoing disease, please do take care of yourself. Now, what would be the 3 things you will implement in your life this summer? So I will let you think about it. And now I would look at the chat and answer to your questions. So, okay, first question, can you repeat how metal gives rise to water again? I'll go back to my slides. Oops. Here. So for those who studied chemistry, metal, if you look at a metal from a microscopic level, you could see that metal is made out of ions. And when you have ions together, then they give water. Another way to look at it would be also that, for instance, metal, when you melt the metal, it becomes liquid. And that liquid metal is premise. It's a kind of original form of the water. I hope it's clear enough for you, Douglas. And if not, please type again and I can explain it again. Another question, can TCM help with seasonal allergies? Yes, it can help. Allergy in traditional Chinese medicine and even for Western medicine, it's your defensive energy that is not strong enough, or in the contrary, too strong. So whatever particles they saw, they want to fight it. So instead of fighting a little bird with an arrow, for instance, they would take the big bazooka to fight the bird. So yes, traditional Chinese medicine can help with seasonal allergies. And if you have seasonal allergies right now, you can come for acupuncture for us to help you with seasonal allergies, but I would also advise you to come again in the autumn, because the allergies, the defensive energy, according to traditional Chinese medicine, is linked to the metal season, because all weapons, like at least back in the days, the weapons were made in metal. So during the autumn, we will also work on strengthening your immune system. So hopefully you won't have the allergies when they come. Okay, so thank you, Yuki, Rachel, Jennifer, Sherry. I know someone that says when the air conditioning is on, the coolness makes them have diarrhea. Have you heard of this before? Should they be wearing a scarf? Definitely, they need to be wearing a scarf. So what's happening is when you have the air conditioning on, it's cold air blowing, which means cold wind. So the cold air goes into the body, and it happens that for that person, the weakest organ system in their body is the digestive system. And because cold air comes in, then they would have diarrhea. So yes, they should definitely be wearing a scarf to protect the wind point, which is the shoulders, the base of the skull, and the back of the neck. Shanta, when I'm outside in the sun, I feel tired when back indoors. Why is that? I would need more information about your health, because, for instance, if you have what we call in Chinese medicine yin deficiency, how can I explain that? In traditional Chinese medicine, we have the yin and yang. So for instance, let's say this hand here is yin and this one is yang. So normally to be healthy, the yin and yang should be in harmony. And when you don't have enough yin and you go outside into the sun and you stay too long in the sun and then you sweat out in the sun, you have even less yin because sweat is liquid, so it's a yin. And then you have too much yang. And when you don't have enough yin, then the yin and the yang are not in balance, and that what can make you feel tired when you're back indoors. You're welcome, Douglas. You're welcome, Sherry. And thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. If you want to contact me or keep in touch with me, you can write to me at this email, aline@dameacupuncture.com. You also have my website here. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Dame Acupuncture. You could also find me on YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you can find all my past webinars on how to keep healthy in the winter, in the spring. I will do one in August about the earth season and another one in October in the autumn. So stay tuned with OCTCM. I also work at another clinic called Yoga Mamas, where I work a lot with fertility, pregnant, and postpartum patients. So you can also find my past webinars on fertility and postpartum, and I will be doing another one on the 28th of July with Yoga Mamas for smooth pregnancy and birth with TCM acupuncture. I also have one sometime late July on stress in the summer. If you want more information, please do write to me. And of course, you can book with me at the Toronto Integrative Medicine Center. You can book by email on the website. You can call, and you can also book a 15-minute complimentary appointment on both Toronto Integrative Medicine Center and also Yoga Mamas, which is more on the east sector. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Chantal. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, Jennifer, how can TCM treat anxiety, lack of focus, and incapacity to make decision? So, anxiety, lack of focus, and incapacity to make decision. So anxiety in traditional Chinese medicine is either you have too much fire or either you don't have enough blood. For instance, and if you have too much fire, then it's like your mind is scattered, and then you can't focus on anything because you are talking about, oh, there's a bird here. Oh no, actually there's whatever is going over there. So if it's anxiety due to too much heat, then my role, acupuncture and TCM, we would say clear the heat, cool you down. So once heat is too much yang, so it would cool you down, take off the extra yang, so the yin and yang would be balanced, and then you would be calmer and you would have less anxiety and you would be able to focus. And the incapacity to make decision, it's because you have so much yang, so much energy, heat going on that you can't focus. And on the other side, you can have anxiety because you don't have enough yin, enough blood to think clearly. You are too tired to have actually energy to go in your head and think clearly, and you can't make decisions because you can't think clearly. So in that case, we would help in building your blood and building your yin. I hope, Jennifer, it answers your question. And some of you might wonder how many sessions they would need. Usually, if it's something chronic, I would say at least 2 sessions of acupuncture per week for the first 2 weeks, and then once per week for the following 4 weeks. So usually you would need 6 to 8 sessions to have consistent results that would last during time, because during that time, and on top of acupuncture, some of you could also get herbs. I don't prescribe herbs yet because I haven't studied yet, but you can ask your traditional Chinese medicine practitioner to prescribe your herbs. And like with me, for instance, it's acupuncture, but I will also give you advice, lifestyle advice and dietary advice. And I would also teach you some Qigong exercises, for instance, if you are anxious and lack of focus, to ground yourself. Yes, Amber, there's time for one more questions. To have cold drinks in moderation, would be safe to have drinks at room temperature? Yes, it's safer because again, if the drink is not as cold, then your body will not use so much energy to warm up the cold drinks at 37 degrees Celsius, which is your body temperature. Is there any more warm drinks you would recommend for the summer? If you're too hot, minty, like the way the American does, like mint, fresh mint that you put in a cup and then you put warm water, it's good. Chrysanthemum tea would be nice for you too, because they help build yin, so it would help you cool down your body. Mung bean teas, so you have mung beans, and then you maybe put a teaspoon and you boil them with a lot of water for, I don't know, 20, 40 minutes. I can't remember how long I boiled them. And then you would drink that water. So we can drink it warm, but warm is like mild warm, lukewarm. You can drink that. And then any other warm drinks, Amber, it really depends on your constitution. For instance, if you're always cold or you have difficulty digesting, I might tell you to have ginger drinks, for instance, and really it depends on your constitution. So I think you're welcome, Amber. 7:34. We're past the time again. I'm sorry to be so talkative. I hope you enjoyed that webinar. Please stay tuned for the next webinars. I didn't put it here and I'm sorry, but on the first Monday of July, my colleague Jessica is doing a webinar on cosmetic acupuncture, because now that we can go out, we can meet people, and some of us don't want to wear a mask anymore, but some of us had maskne, which means lots of acne because of so much wearing mask. You can look at how cosmetic acupuncture can help you. And the nice thing with cosmetic acupuncture, when you come for a cosmetic acupuncture treatment, is we treat your face so you would look good, but we also treat your body at the same time so you would look good and feel good. And that's the most important. And for somebody like me who used to work for a competitor of Botox, or used to work for Sculptra, which is a precursor of hyaluronic acid, that's what I really like about traditional Chinese medicine, is we work on how you look, but also how you feel. Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for being here tonight. Have a wonderful summer. And if you need anything, you know where to find me and how to contact me. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Bye-bye. And now I need to know how